People constantly message me and they go, how come you're not dating? Like, we would love to see you in a relationship. You're worthy of that. I am no longer going to sacrifice how I feel to offset somebody's expectations of me. People don't know how to take you when you've lost a considerable amount of weight. Men that reach out to me, usually in the last couple of weeks, I've noticed, you're beautiful. I bet you smell good. 100% off my looks. Very rarely do they say, so do you have kids? Whenever you talk to people who have lost a considerable amount of weight, they all have the same kind of general consensus, right? Relationships in your life change. Some of them for the positive, but the majority of the relationships kind of take a downward spiral. Very rarely is it ever your fault. People don't know how to take you when you've lost a considerable amount of weight. It's not always jealousy. The confidence that comes from setting a goal and reaching that goal in anything really, but when you're talking about weight loss, that person actually feels more confident. But all of the growth and development that happens through the process is remarkable in so many different ways. People never saw you before. Let me say that again. People, they never saw you going into the grocery store, asking for something. They're looking at you, but they're not really looking at you. Whenever you put on your makeup, do your hair, dress up a little bit because of the confidence that you have, people talk to you differently, treat you differently, you carry yourself differently. But the people that see you on a normal basis don't know necessarily how to accept that. They don't really know the best way to deal with that. Because they didn't go through the process themselves. So they never really went through the journey with you, if that makes sense. There were times in my journey that I went through things with specific people, and I want to talk about it. Because I believe that it is going to be healing for some because they'll be able to identify with what I dealt with. After I had lost all my weight and I had hit my goal, my daughter at that time lived in Kentucky. She moved up there to go to school and decided after a little over 2 years that she was ready to move back to Texas for various reasons. When she came back, I noticed that she would stare at me more. And then one day we were walking in the hallway of the house. I was coming out of my bedroom and she was coming out of the living room. And she said, "It's almost like you're not even my mom." And I said, "What?" She said, "It's almost like you're not even my mom." She's like, "I don't really know who you are." She's like, "I know you're my mom. You're standing right in front of me. But I don't remember seeing you ever this way as long as I can remember. And like, I know you're my mom, right? But it's just so weird. It's like you're a stranger." And I didn't know how to take that. It really hit me hard and it made me emotional. But in front of her, I was like, "Girl, it's only because I'm skinny now." But I carried that around for a while and I thought, wow, there's a lot of people in your direct life. And then you're going to meet the people that, now this is crazy. You're going to meet the people like in the dental office, for instance. You come in every 6 months for your dental cleaning. You don't come in very often in between cleanings unless there's an issue, a filling or whatever. People wouldn't see me for periods of 6 months. In 6 months, I lost 37% of my body weight on Mounjaro. 55 pounds, that's a lot. So the people that came in and saw me and then came back and saw me, they were like, "So what happened to Jenny? Like, what happened to Jen that's been here forever and ever?" And I'm like, "I'm right here." And they're like, "What? Like, this is you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is me." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, you look so different. You look 10 years younger. Like, I didn't even recognize you. Like, what did you do? How did you do this? Like, wow." In front of people, you maintain. You're like, "Yeah, you play it off." But then later on, you think, are they belittling me? Are they putting me down? Like, you don't know how to take it. And then you get the compliments. You don't know if they're backhanded compliments or not, right? People say, God, you look great. Yeah, yeah. That shot, right? That shot is a miracle. Everybody's on that shot, right? That's what you did, right? You did the shot. Yeah, 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 I did. And it's a magic shot, right? You take this shot and whoa, you're skinny. If that was the case, oh man, that would be so much easier than having to change your diet, get out there and walk, drink water, focus on protein, figure out what you're going to eat. It, DoorDash just got a lot more complicated, right? Because you're not just eating the fried, cheap food. You're actually spending time trying to figure out, okay, what can I eat? Like, what can I eat from various places? If my kids want to order from this place, what can I eat on this menu that lines up with what I've been doing? It's not a magic shot. It's not. And when people refer to it as such, it angers me because there's so much more that goes into this than just injecting yourself once a week. You could continue to eat the way that you were eating before, especially in my case, and it would just lead to me being sick. So I knew that some changes had to be made. It's not a magic shot. So when you're talking about different relationships, I'm going to give you a perfect example. I'm not married, so I'm not in a relationship. It made it tough at times. You don't have that pat on the back, but you also don't have to adjust your way of thinking, your way of living, your way of eating with anybody necessarily, right? My kids are older. Um, I buy a bunch of groceries. They're pretty, they fend for themselves or whatever, but it's past that. My mother, we'll talk about this because I've talked to my mom about it, and it's something we had to work through too, which is really sad, but I think it's important to talk about these situations. My mother has always been tiny. She's always been petite. She's always been beautiful, flawless skin. Always looked very young for her age. Bunch of energy, just naturally beautiful. It was never a competition, even though I was her only daughter. It was never a competition. When I lost all the weight and my mom and I could wear like the same size clothes, I was excited, right? My mom buys all these expensive, nice clothes, and it's always been I don't know if you can wear this, I don't know if you can fit it. Not to be ugly, but, sometimes you feel a certain way when people say that. My mother and I had to work through some things when I lost all my weight. And there was at one point we would go places and I would be able to shop where she shopped for the first time. And she would make comments like, yeah, I think that looks great. Are you sure it's not too tight? When you've lost a lot of weight and you're wearing things that are a little bit more form fitting, the last thing you want somebody to do is make suggestions to buy bigger clothes. She didn't understand how that was affecting me. I had to explain it. And then she went, oh my gosh, that was not my intention. I'm so sorry. It just looked uncomfortable. For someone like me, who's had to shop at certain stores for years, I could never walk into stores like Ann Taylor, J. Crew. I could never shop in stores like that. I would have to go to, specialty stores that had sizes all the way up to like 22, 24, right? It was an eye-opening experience. The growth around the people that you love the most is also very rewarding to watch. Also, you have to go through things and it can be emotional as well. So one of the most memorable things that happened as far as relationships was there was a dental assistant that worked at the dental office, and she had been there for years, and I had known her for years. I started to lose a whole bunch of weight. I had joined kickboxing, but didn't do that for very long because I'm a little bit older and I kept injuring myself. So she came up to me one day and she said, so you're still doing that Mounjaro, that terzepatide stuff? I said, yeah. And she said, yeah, I heard it paralyzes your stomach. And I said, yeah. I said, there's a small portion of people that will have to deal with that, but people that have type 2 diabetes, they can have that happen without taking these medications. And she's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I hadn't heard that one. She's like, yeah, you want to be careful with experimental drugs. Then a couple weeks later, Another, sly comment. All right, so now I hit goal. Worked on myself, had a couple of surgeries, put things back where I wanted them. Started working on myself emotionally. Now it's time to get back in the dating world, right? I think I'm ready. You make profiles, and you're like, okay, I think I can actually get back out there and just see what's out there. Everything these days seems very surface level, and I think that's important maybe in the beginning. But there's so many different thoughts that run through your head. Your body is far from perfect. I, by the Lord above, had the ability to make changes to my body. Not everybody does, and insurance is a nightmare to deal with. They don't want to pay for much of anything. But I'll tell you this, getting back out there looks different. It looks very different. Men that reach out to me, usually in the last couple of weeks, I've noticed, you're beautiful. I bet you smell good. Blah, blah, blah. 100% off my looks. Very rarely do they say, so do you have kids? How many kids? What do you do? It's always, you're beautiful. I'm in a place in my life right now where I don't want you to tell me that I'm beautiful. I know I'm beautiful. There's a lot of people out there that say the same thing. I love myself. I don't want to go from being invisible to being beautiful. The sad part of making all these changes is the body that you have left over with. In a lot of ways, I looked at myself when I hit my goal, as proud as I was to be wearing extra smalls and to be wearing a zero jeans. Like, that was an accomplishment for me. The reward was there. But at the same time, you look at that and you go, okay, but without this shirt or without these jeans on, how am I ever going to be attractive to someone? I want to be in a relationship, but my brain won't allow me to proceed. I am mortified because the people that we have to identify with, right, are people in magazines, movies. I know that I have lost all this weight, but what was left behind, the extra skin, the tons of imperfections. I remember that I hit my goal January of 23 and I was at a baseball game and I was wearing the school shirt and the t-shirt came a little bit above my elbow and my son hit a triple and I went to clap. And when I went to clap, I could feel the little bit of the skin on my arm waving back and forth. And whether anybody saw it or not, I was so embarrassed and I wouldn't clap for the rest of the game. So I made a mental note, I got to wear long sleeve shirts underneath my t-shirts. I'm not worried about that anymore. But those types of things used to occupy so much space in my head. If I wouldn't have done the work mental health wise in my head to allow acceptance of myself and the way it was, I would have never been where I'm at now. Mental health on this journey is so important. Therapy for a lot of people. If you don't correct the behaviors, the things that you do when you're upset, the triggers, I don't think this will be successful in the long term. I really don't. There's a lot of people that just go through the motions. They come out at the end, they go, okay, now what? Now you're satisfied. Or are you? You have to do the work. It's very important. People constantly message me and they go, how come you're not dating, Jen? Like, we would love to see you in a relationship. You're worthy of that. People that genuinely love me and don't know me. People message me every day and they're like, wow, I look forward to your lives because I learned so much. And that's why I do it. That's why I do it. I share my experiences on social media every single day because I know if it helps one person, that's enough. That's enough. My kids know how passionate I am because of all the changes I've made in my life, and they see the way I carry myself now, that it's wonderful and rewarding that they got to go through this journey with me and see me start here and go to here. They'll come to me and ask me questions where they didn't before. I'm in the kitchen talking about good, viable protein options a year ago with my son because he's working out and he's trying to build muscle. He's like, well, what do you think if I do this? He's coming to me. He's coming to me about it. And that made me feel good because he sees me. The boundaries with everyone changes, but the relationships change. If you live in a bubble, nothing is going to change. It's not always the boundaries that are bad that you have to change. It's, I feel so good about myself. A lot of it has to do with the journey that I went through, every different thing, changing my eating, learning what this, how does this protein affect me versus this kind of protein? Supplements, going for regular checkups. All of this entailed, like all of this summed up into one thing, made me who I am today. You have to address all of that. All of it. Your relationships with people will get so much better. They will. The backhanded comment will stop. The jealousy or envious people will weed themselves out because it's not the reaction that they're seeking that you're giving them anymore. I'm not going to entertain it. They know that now. So the relationships that I have now are so much more meaningful. The laughter I experience now is different because it's not coming from a place of nervousness, anxiety. It's coming from genuine overall happiness because I feel better, not because I'm skinny, because I'm treating things inside my body that made me feel awful. I know how to fuel my body in a positive way now. What does dating look like for me? That's a tough one. People reach out to me all the time and they're like, Jen, why don't you start dating? Really? I can't imagine that you enjoy being single. Well, guess what? I have. I have enjoyed it. And I'm never alone. I have my family and my kids. But you're right. There is that missing piece. There's all these thoughts that ran through my head for the longest time. Do I need to tell them that I used to be overweight? What are they going to do when they find out what I do? Are they going to say it's because of the medication? I don't want to be involved with her. She used to be a big, big, big girl. And yeah, now she looks great, but that's plastic surgery and medication. Is that going to be a thought in their head? Is somebody going to accept me and love me for the person that I actually am? Are they always going to have that worry? But what if? Those are the things that I used to think. That's why I address the fact that the mental health aspect of that has to change. I no longer seek validation through people. Nope. I did this journey on my own, yeah, with a lot of support, but mostly from people who don't even know me. People on social media. And I encourage people along the way. There's so many people out there that will clap for you and will follow you because they start doing what you did and they see the rewards in their own life. People reach out, hey Jen, just wanted to let you know that my husband and I have had a weird relationship for the last couple of months. I've lost 35 pounds and he didn't know how to accept it. We have been talking, you said sit down and spend 30 minutes alone at night with the TV off, and we do that now. It has opened so many things. We're going to play putt-putt. We haven't done that since we first got married 28 years ago. We're laughing, we're joking. We have set aside one night where we go eat together. Our relationship has changed because the mental health aspect of it, the growth I'm dealing with, the change in boundaries, he's accepting now because he knows how hard it is for me. That's huge. That's huge. Communication. But it's communication on a whole different level now. You're trying to bring them up to where this is where I'm at. I'm not seeking validation. I'm letting you know what's going on inside my head. It makes a difference. It makes a difference, a huge difference. So, what do you do next? All right, so I joined a dating app. I joined a dating app. I did that primarily because I'm ready, but that's what you do. I don't drink, so there's no point in me going to a bar. Um, I'm not a partier. I'm not going to clubs all times of the night. I really don't go anywhere unless I go to the post office or the grocery store. So, I mean, that brings me back to how do you meet people? Social media. It's been tough. It's been hard. I've met some really nice people, but ultimately, there's still those thoughts that run through my head is do I need to tell them that I was in a bigger body? They're going to ask me what I do for a living. How do I sidestep that without being a liar? Or how do I not explain what I do? What do I say? It's a difficult pill to swallow. I would love to get back out there and meet someone and have something. But there's so many thoughts that run through your head. You're like, gosh, I know I need to say this, but do I? Or how? How do I say this? People say, well, what do you do for a living? What do you say? I tell them, I just work in radio, television, or film. And my mom started laughing when I told her that. And she's like, why do you say that? Just tell them you're an influencer. No way. No way. Because they're like, oh, yeah, well, what's your socials? I don't know you. You know what I mean? So there's a fine line there. I get messages from people all day long on social media. All day long. Between the multiple accounts I have on different platforms, people ask me all kinds of things. And, some of them are being hit on. Some of them are genuine. Some of them are asking for help, side effects. You name it. I get asked everything. You would be surprised at some of the things, and some of them you wouldn't be. I wouldn't change a thing. If I can share different aspects of my journey and it helps somebody else, it's rewarding. It's rewarding. And I'm there. People are gracious. Thank you so much. It's awful what I've been going through or whatever. I've entered that place in my life where I've maintained this weight for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in January. I've done the plastic surgery. I've done all of the different aspects of it. I've done the mental health work. I've reset boundaries. So now I think I'm in a healthier place emotionally, physically. So I'm ready to take that next step. But what does that look like? It looks like dating apps. That's kind of where we're at. So you talk to various people and you go on these dates or you go to dinner or whatever the case may be, or you go have a drink, but you don't drink. So you don't really drink your drink. But you kind of try each other on, so to speak. That's tough because you don't want to share too much, but you don't want to not share at the same time because you don't want to seem closed off or shallow. I think those are the things that need to be addressed more. I realized this a couple of days ago. Those were all the things running through my head. I am me. I am 100% uniquely, genuinely me, myself. No more games. I'm going to share what I feel like sharing. It's not surface level. It's self-preservation. It's confidence. The way I carry myself now, it took a lot of work to get here. I 100% want nothing more than to just be authentic, open, honest. My mother. My mother has always been beautiful. Always been petite, always been very small, always been beautiful, always looked 25 years younger than she is. Being her only daughter, I always felt a pressure that was never enforced on me. Let me say that again. I was never pressured by my mother to be thin, to maintain this. But the people around her made me feel the pressure to be like her. That was tough. That was, unnecessary expectations put on me from various family members. Or the constant, you have such a pretty face. If you would just cut back on this and that, the unwanted advice. But in comparison, in the long form, they were comparing me to my mom. I would have loved nothing more than to have never gone through the battles that I went through, the ups and downs of weight. We didn't have these medications that controlled the things inside my body that these medications are controlling now. People now know that it wasn't just excuses, right? It wasn't just poor choices. Now, I take responsibility for the fact that a lot of it was I had things going on inside my body that these medications treat that made it a lot easier. I did change a lot of things in my diet, but to be honest with you, the majority of the things that I changed were things that I picked up just because. They weren't things I had been doing for decades and decades. They were the easy choices. It was difficult for me to establish who I was at the end of this journey. I didn't see myself. I looked in the mirror. I never saw the weight loss. It took months before it caught up with my brain. Months. That was tough. I made a video a year and a half ago, and I was working my part-time job, and this guy came up and he was like, "Oh, watch out, you're so tiny, I don't want to crush you." I went to my car and made a video because I was offended. I was angry that he called me tiny. And then I had so many people reaching out, making comments, and they were like, "But you are, but you are, but you are." And I went, "No, I'm not." And then I looked at the video 2 months after that and realized, yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are tiny. It felt like a put down, a backhanded comment. They weren't. It was real, but I didn't see it. It takes a while. People reach out to me and they say, "When will I see it? Everybody's telling me how much weight I've lost. They can see it in my face. When will I see it? When am I going to see it? Do you know how long it's going to take for my brain to catch up?" Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. Wake up every morning, brush your teeth, make your bed, have your coffee, and keep going about your day. It takes a little while. Everybody has a different window of time before they start to see what other people are seeing. You look at yourself every day. If somebody tells you you look great, if somebody gives you a compliment, whether it's backhanded or not, you take it and you run with it. You run with it. You don't second guess it. If somebody says, "Wow, you look great." Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And keep going. It doesn't matter how they intended it. You are the one that makes you feel bad about it, not them. You give them power if you make it a negative thing. You take that compliment and you run with it and you channel it to do more positivity. That's what's important. How you feel about yourself. Nobody can make you feel bad about yourself. That's you. That's you. You have to work on yourself in different aspects. You have to put in the work and do the time. Surround yourself with people who genuinely want the best for you. Pull back from the relationships where they expect things from you. It's never going to end well. You deserve to have good relationships with good people in your lives. And it's awful because some of those relationships that you're going to have to set a boundary and or end, or friendships, are going to be with people who you've known for years and years, sometimes even family members. I am no longer going to sacrifice how I feel to offset somebody's expectations of me. I'm not. The people that I surround myself with on a daily basis, they know that. Setting healthy boundaries is important. Realizing your boundaries will have to change is important. The amount of work that you're putting in on this journey, you are worth more than people's negative image or negative comments to you. You don't need them. They don't work. They're not helpful. If nothing else, they're just going to make you feel bad about yourself. That's not fair. Remove that. Remove that. The people that don't deserve to be there for the end, remove them. If they love you, they'll learn how to accept you. The big transition after I hit my goal and all these things, the big transition came from the people closest to me. My boys handled it in different ways. My son, my youngest son, would in a joking, playing way, say, "Well, you only weigh 5 pounds. Come here, little mama," instead of mom. Or he would make comments, but they would be funny and uplifting. My middle son had a hard time because he was a junior about to be a senior in high school. And so, that male 18-year-old, 17-year-old energy, his friends would tease him about me. And it used to infuriate him, embarrass him. He would turn red. And one day we were leaving the baseball game, and one of his friends said, "Will you go to prom with me?" And I looked at my son, and my son got red-faced. And I said, "Absolutely," like joking around. And I told my son, I said, "It's okay." And he said, "No, they're not going to talk to you like that." I said, "It's okay. It's okay." That was a lesson for him, and it was a hard one, because where he went from defending me all the time, he realized that they weren't doing it to be ugly or spiteful. He could make that a positive thing. And then it became a funny thing. And it was just wonderful to see the transformation that happened with the people in my everyday life. They went from having to defend me to being so proud of me. And it was a different kind of defending, if that makes sense. Skinny privilege is a thing, and it's awful. It's embarrassing. It makes you angry. People jump over counters to help you now. Repair guys that come to the house for different things are climbing in at my attic and not charging me the extra half hour. It's so wild because people, say, "Oh, you are treated completely different in a smaller body." You are. So if anybody ever tells you you're not, it's never been my personal experience. What has been my personal experience is the fact that in a smaller body, people smile at me more. They offer more help. I ask a question in the pharmacy, and the pharmacist leaves from behind the counter and walks over personally and starts giving me his recommendations on products. That never happened before. The repair guy came to fix my air conditioner and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and do this and that. Don't worry about that." And I've never experienced some of the situations that I'm in. Very strange. That was a lot. That was a lot at first. For so many years, I was not seen. And when I explain that, people go, "That's exactly how I feel. I'm going through the same thing." So don't ever think for 1 second that pretty privilege or skinny privilege doesn't exist or it's not a thing. It is 100% real. It is. You are treated completely different. To sum everything up, the most important thing I talk to people about on social media usually is side effects. Side effects is something we all have in common. What works for me might work for you, but it might not. It's worth a shot. I think it's so awesome this day and age where people can get on, use platforms like TikTok and other platforms, and they can share their experiences so that people have more than one opinion. It's so important because there is nothing across the board that's going to work for you, me, that's going to be the exact same, except for the fact that majority of us will have like constipation or whatever the case may be. It is important to share our experiences, to comment on posts. It is just as important to be receptive and realize that this might have worked for someone else and it might not work for me, but I'm going to try that next week. I'm going to try something with a little less dairy. Maybe that could be contributing. It's just wild this day and age that we have all of the different avenues. And it's wonderful. It also can be very damaging in a lot of cases. People message me things like, how can you sit there and share your experience here when we know that you have to have electrolytes all day long? And I'm like, because I did the electrolyte thing in the beginning because that's what I heard, but it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me at all. People are like, oh, okay. I'm sharing my experience. I'm not saying this is what you do. I'm saying this is what didn't work for me, but this is what did work for me. And people are very receptive in a lot of ways. They'll message me back, hey, Jen, I just want to let you know, thank you so much. I feel so much better. Or that didn't work for me, but this did. And I think that's what's important, is to pour into each other. It's not always going to be across the board perfection for everybody, but sharing tips and tricks and things that work, things that didn't work. It's so much more just beyond sharing to one person. It's important because doctors don't have time to spend with patients. On social media, at least by sharing journeys, you get multiple different people out there saying what worked and what didn't work. I exercise all the time, but so and so might not exercise all the time. That's important. My life looks different because of the changes that I made. The changes in what I allow people to say to me. Going back to boundaries. It is necessary to change boundaries, even in established relationships. And I could say it thousands and thousands of times, and until you actually get it. Some situations and relationships won't change. I think establishing healthy boundaries with people is important. It will make a big difference in your everyday relationships. My boundaries changed in the relationships that I had with my children. That was a big deal. That was huge. And now the relationship is so much different. I still have to correct the behavior sometimes, but overall, they get it. They get it. They see a mother who is confident, who is proud, who cares about her appearance. I genuinely care about how I look now. Not to impress anyone else. My daughter and I have had multiple arguments. We go to get ready. We leave the house and 5 minutes down the road is Ulta. We get ready to go into Ulta and I look in the rearview mirror just to make sure that I have lipstick on, and it drives her insane. Why do you have to get dressed up for people you don't even know? It's not about them. It has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with anybody but myself. I genuinely take pride on how I look. Let me feel this way. I never felt this way before. I never looked in the mirror before I went in the store because I didn't care about myself. But I've worked so hard to get where I'm at. The validation that I feel, like I said earlier, no longer comes from others. It comes from here. I stopped seeking validation through other people. That's what one of the wonderful things that came from this journey was the self-love, the dedication to myself, the washing my face every night, the skincare routine that I got into because I genuinely care about myself. That's a hard pill to swallow. It is. People around you don't know how to take that. They don't. Sometimes they have a negative defensive reaction. And then inadvertently, it makes you angry because you're like, how could you feel this way? It doesn't make any sense to me. It makes total sense to me now because you don't see me. Does that make sense? They don't see you. Establishing boundaries, working on your relationships, opening up lines of communication. What I will tolerate, what I won't tolerate, who I am, how I've changed, making that abundantly clear to everybody. It's huge. It's very important. If I don't say anything else, this is what I hope people realize is you are worth it. You are worth it. I don't care if the guy down the street or your neighbor or your grandma or the mailman makes comments because of you're on the shot. It doesn't affect me anymore. It wasn't just a magic pill. It wasn't just a magic shot. There are so many different things that I did put myself through to be the person that I am. And that's huge. It's huge. I don't seek validation through others, nor do I care how people feel. I'm not disrespectful. I love myself. If you cannot figure out how to love me, you shouldn't be there. That's huge.